I'm Mario Donick, and besides some other jobs, I'm a freelance author and I also work on computer games and game studies. And this is my fourth Frog conference in total and my third Frog in a row. And so thanks for the possibility for joining again via Zoom. And yes, your short notice on this exhibition with this wheelchair, with this wheel for driving simulator, which you are having in your exhibition sounds very interesting. And maybe next year I get vacation in my main job, so I can finally join Frog in Vienna again. So today I want to talk about bus driving games. So public transport simulations are a subgenre of career simulators, or in German we also call them Berufssimulation. And in bus simulation games, we play the role of a bus driver. So we steer a bus through cities, we drive passengers from A to B, we try to keep to a tight schedule, but we still make the ride comfortable for our passengers. And we sell tickets for money. And sometimes we even go through the bus on foot and control passengers if they have a ticket or not. And if they don't have a ticket, they have to pay more. And today, I want to share a few thoughts about this ticket selling aspects of such games, specifically in the games The Bus from TML and Aerosoft, which is still in early access, and also a bit in the game Bus Simulator 21 from Still Alive Games and Ascaron. The main focus of these games is, of course, driving the bus. The simulation The Bus offers a large part of the German capital Berlin as a playground with several lines you can drive. And Bus Simulator 21 comes with two entirely fictional cities. One is supposed to be at the US West Coast, so like San Francisco, somehow like that. And one to be some version of Austria, I think. While the bus offers real-world routes and real-world schedules, Bus Simulator 21 allows us to create our own routes and even as some kind of side game manage a little bus company. Now, selling tickets, as you can see here on these two screenshots, is a part of both games. So when you stop at the bus stop and open the front door, the passengers step inside the bus and often ask you for a specific ticket. Both games model the sales process. So the passenger asks for a specific ticket type like student ticket or regular ticket and so on, and pays some amount of money. You, as the bus driver, select the correct ticket in your bus onboard computer, which you can also see here on these screenshots maybe. You select it, you print it with your printer, and if the passenger paid with cash, you give change money with your coin dispenser, which is really nice to press the buttons and all the coins are dispensed with this nice sound, which is made by coins when they fall. And Bus Simulator 21 models this process in a simplified and abstract way. Ticket types are generic and money is not visible, even if it is audible and modeled internally. The bus is quite realistic in this regard. The available ticket types and pricing zones match Berlin. The user interface of the onboard computer resembles its real-world counterpart. The passengers use different means of paying, and if they pay in cash, you see the coins and banknotes, and you even have to take the money coin by clicking the money with your mouse cursor. And actually, this is somehow fun. It's totally trivial, this aspect, but it is very fun. And this is what made me think why it is fun to me. What does it add for me to the gaming situation? So in terms of game mechanic, it's trivial. It does not add much to the game itself, but it adds to the atmosphere of the games in some ways. And it increases the immersion in the played role of a traditional bus driver. So this type of bus driver who is still responsible for selling tickets in many places today. So in this role play situation uses certain game mechanics, and it also has some narrative aspects like the narrative of performing a typical shift in the job as a bus driver. So I go to pick up my bus in the depot, and then I drive to the first bus station where I pick up the first passengers and so on. or the narrative even of a little bus company, which grows over time and must be managed besides the mere driving aspect, as in Bus Simulator 21. So as players, we seek both the mechanics and narratives of this, well, child's dream job, bus driver, but we may also seek a certain atmosphere which we associate with that job. Now, atmosphere is a term that is often used intuitively without much further definition. I use it in a neo-phenomenological perspective as suggested by philosophers like Gernot Böhme and Hermann Schmitz. Both have already passed, I think, last year or 2 years ago, but this discipline of neo-phenomenology is still very much alive in certain universities. And neo-phenomenology is interested in German it's called the Leib. In English, we could translate it with the lived body or the felt body, in contrast to the physical, measurable, and somehow objectified body or Körper. There is no Leib as a distinct thing. The Leib is the entirety of kinds of perceptions which are undoubtedly present for the perceiving subjects, but which cannot be clearly assigned to one of their physical senses, like my eyes or my ears, or reduced to these sensory inputs alone. For example, we can perceive the focused, tense atmosphere of an interesting conference session where everybody is focused on the speaker and is listening and everything is quiet and it's a really tense, concentrated atmosphere. And on the other hand, we can have a lively, relaxed atmosphere in the evening at the conference dinner, or at least the people present in the real world at the conference can have this. In the same way, we can also perceive a virtual world in a computer game as atmospheric, maybe as dense, without further specification, maybe as exciting, like in a sports game, as frightening, like in a horror adventure, or stressful, like in a bus simulator where we have to keep a tight schedule. Now, the term atmosphere is not used uniformly in the various varieties of phenomenology, especially the question if an atmosphere can be made intentionally, so created with specific means by designers, or if an atmosphere is just somehow there, is a point of discussion. And the answer to that question decides if we can talk about atmospheres only in a reception-oriented view, or if also a production-oriented view is possible. A production-oriented view allows for practical uses when we analyze atmospheres, while the former acknowledges that finding means to speak about subjective perceptions of atmospheres should be enough in itself, at least when one starts to talk about it or to think about it. Gernot Böhme sees atmospheres as partly originating from objects, and this makes it possible to consciously create atmospheres because objects can be designed and arranged. This meets a production-oriented aesthetic interest in atmospheres, and by the way, is therefore the view taken by Felix Zimmermann's book Virtuelle Wirklichkeiten, which I can't recommend enough if you're interested in atmosphere and computer games. Zimmermann especially deals with the creation of atmospheres of the past in computer games. In this production-oriented view, game designers can arrange certain design elements to achieve a certain atmosphere. In contrast to Böhme, Hermann Schmidt sees atmospheres as free-floating and not emitted by things, not at all. An atmosphere, he writes, is a borderless, indivisible, extended occupation of a surfaceless space. From this point of view, it's very difficult to speak about atmospheres as designed and extended from video games, for example. I can't discuss this here in detail. I just take a pragmatic approach on Böhme's and Schmidt's disagreement, because even if developers of a computer game were not able to consciously design atmospheres by putting design element A and B and C in order to achieve atmosphere D, and we still can perceive atmospheres in the games. And if we perceive a specific atmosphere only while using a specific game, it's reasonable to assume that the game and its elements indeed have an impact on the perceived atmospheres. So now, according to neo-phenomenology, we perceive atmospheres not just as sensory inputs, but with the whole felt body, the Leib. And this term does not refer to the visible, measurable body as an object. It's more of a shorthand for the entirety of perceptions, which cannot be easily related to sensory inputs, but are still there. It's a contrast to the scientifically objectified, measurable body or Körper. So we perceive atmospheres in situations. And situations, according to Schmitz, are a threefold of facts, problems, and programs which come together. Facts are that what is, problems are what is meant to be, and programs are norms, wishes, ideas which influence how we perceive, judge, and deal with the situation at hand and with regard to the problem. But situations do not appear step by step, of course, and they are, of course, not separated in the real world in these three aspects mentioned. They appear to us suddenly and holistically. Therefore, their meanings cannot be explained in detail or reconstructed in detail. They are, as Schmitz would say, internally diffuse. The problem and program terms are therefore a bit different than the everyday use of these words suggests. In everyday life, a problem is an undesirable state which has to be transformed into a desired state, whereby a barrier must be overcome during the transformation. The steps of a transformation would usually be viewed as a program in this sense. So first I do this, then I do that in order to achieve the desired state. And this is something that is not the focus of neo-phenomenology. It's more really the perception of this whole situation in itself, which is what is interesting for Schmitz and others. So in the situations we live, we have simple everyday life situations. This is the focus. So when playing a bus simulation, which tries to simulate real life, we are, of course, also exposed to situations, both the gaming situation, so my own situation as a player, and the simulated situation of the characters I play or the things I do in the game. And the simulated situation in a bus simulator game is connected to the playing situation on all three levels. As a fact, we of course play the simulation game and we perceive all the things which belong to it together at once. The movement of the bus when it drives, the movement of the people who are standing at the bus stop, the sounds of the people, the sounds of my own bus, the sounds of everything in the game, while also being situated in the real world space with all the other perceivable elements. And of course, also before the background of our contexts, of our knowledge, of our wishes and desires. This all comes together in the playing situation when we would try to tear it apart into the single facts. Then we have the problems. Why do we play? We want to relax, or we want to feel escapism. Maybe we want to explore a virtual city. Maybe we want to remember our last vacation in the depicted city, like Berlin. Or I have also a screenshot somewhere of trams in Vienna, where we can drive with a tram through Vienna. This I always like to play some days before Frog. And maybe we want to achieve a high score, like being on time, keeping the schedule, earning lots of money with the bus company, and so on. Maybe we also want to create chaos in the city by not adhering to rules. This can also this can everything be a problem when we play such games. And the program where we play the game based on our own values and goals which define the problem as a serious simulator, as a driving game for the sake of driving, and so on. So, and the simulated situation is a bit easier. The bus driver we play, he has a clear facts. He has to follow a schedule. He has to transport the passengers. He has the problem to navigate the city, to don't crash, to obey traffic rules, to care about the ticketing, and to be on time. And he can basically just decide, yeah, do I want to follow the rules? Is this more important to me than being on schedule, or is safety more important to me than the schedule, or passenger comfort more important? So the simulated bus driver, this situation is a bit easier to grasp. But when we play it, both situations, real one and the simulated one, they come together and are processed by us as a whole. So the norms, goals, and wishes of the programs influence how the problems are tackled. If being on time is a dominant norm in my simulated situation and maybe also in my real life situation, I may disobey traffic rules like being faster than allowed or crossing a red traffic light. If safety or passenger comfort is the dominant norm, I may sacrifice punctuality for that. And if I take the game very seriously and try to accomplish all goals at once, being on time, no accidents, no rule breaks, fast ticket sales, I may feel a form of stress. The game may even feel as work, like the job it tries to depict. And in Hermann Schmitz has a concept called vital drive or vitaler Antrieb, where he uses some terms like narrowing and widening or expanding to describe how a situation can be felt with the felt body. And I may feel the stress of this bus driving simulation while processing the tickets as a narrowness with my life when I know I'm already late and each passenger without a ticket delays me further, especially those who dare to pay with either small coins or with large banknotes like 20 or 50 euro notes. This is very stressful when I know I am already 2 minutes late and it all accumulates to a very, very long delay in the end. And I can feel the stress and it can show me by narrowing myself, by maybe holding my breath while I try to process the ticketing as fast as I can, but still as precise as I can, because when I make a mistake printing the wrong ticket, it is delayed even further. So this whole ticket selling situation is yeah, a quite intense part of these bus simulations, in fact. Yeah. Now, the ticket selling itself is, of course, about money and handling money, taking coins and banknotes, giving change money using the coin dispenser, or setting up wireless payment methods for the passenger. And money or payment methods, when they are when we use them as an artifact, they are made of some kind of material. Yeah, coins are made of metal, banknotes of some kinds of paper, but we can also have a debit card made of plastics, or we even use phones already to pay, made of metal and glass, and all have a certain feel. For phenomenology, the sensory input of a material is not sufficient to describe how we perceive it. In his book on atmospheres, Gernot Böhme has a chapter on material aesthetics in which he points out that feeling a material as having some quality, like its warmth, is not explained by analyzing it physically and not by using it as an object, but by perceiving the material as atmosphere. According to Böhme, material emit atmospheres which we observe in our perception and feelings. A cheap mobile phone made of plastic emits a different atmosphere than an expensive mobile phone made of metal and glass. And we may associate one with a low income maybe, and the other one with wealth. And we may even buy the expensive one, even if we can't afford it, just to present ourselves as wealthy. So there is a combination of material and social meaning. And to tackle this, Böhme speaks of materials as a combination of so-called synesthetic characters and social characters. Synesthetic means two or more qualities are being perceived together. A material can be perceived as having a warm character because of its color, its shape, or its softness. And social characters, the association we have with the material and certain ways of life. So, okay, here we are. In computer games, the visuals and the sounds of objects are means of transporting material characters. They transport a specific atmosphere, like the coin sound, which emits in the bus when I press the coin dispenser. Here, I don't know if you see my mouse cursor, but here, this is the coin dispenser. You press it to change money. Or when I go through the bus and ask passengers for their ticket. And if they don't have a ticket, the cash register sound is played by the game, which is also, has also a material quality to me. So I have to hurry a bit. I see in the bus, there are, as I mentioned, several payment types. People pay with coins, banknotes, debit cards, and mobile phones. So they also pay with different materials, and we can perceive these materials as players in the game, like coins as hard and metallic and heavy, or the debit card as hard and plastic, artificial. And um, my point is that we associate different social aspects with these types of payment in the bus simulation. And this, for me, makes the simulation more immersive. Superficially, we could simply say it's part of a job, so it's realistic to include it, but it also engages us on some implicit level. Like when we think as a player or grumpy bus driver, really, you pay this short trip with a 20 euro note? Because when I have to press the coin dispenser buttons a lot, or I have to pick up every coin if somebody uses small coins, and this is all wasting my time because I have to keep the schedule. I already described this challenge. Now, what would we lose if we would remove payments from the bus simulations? Ticket selling and identifying passengers without tickets integrate money into the driving simulation. It's like a natural part of public transport. This part makes us aware that passengers would not be able to drive the bus if they would not have any money, which in the real world is a big problem for many people who may even be criminalized if not able to pay the higher transport fees of getting caught. By default, bus simulators depict the status quo with the inclusion of money-related tasks. The default is public transport is only for those with money. When I pay with a debit card or phone, I present myself as financially solvent and able to use and pay for modern technology. When I pay with lots of small coins in a society where cashless payment is the norm, I stick out for whatever reason. The means of payment can divide people in groups. In the game settings, we can set the probability of ticket buying in general. You can even set it to 0 if you just want to drive the bus without interruption. This basically means that either you simulate that everybody has already a ticket or that maybe rides are free. The effect on simulation is that everything goes smoother. The workload is reduced, and I can only speak for myself, but the stress level is much lower because it's much easier to keep a schedule. I am more relaxed, and I imagine my virtual passengers are also more relaxed if I don't need to rush. The atmosphere of the game changes. It loses the infantile playing with money aspect, of course, the coins, the sounds, but the rhythm of the game, what I perceive as narrowing and expanding in the phenomenological sense of this vital drive, is much smoother. I can only imagine, without any proof and not even as a solid hypothesis, that in the real world, the absence of paying in public transports would also have a positive effect on the situative perceptions of people. Phenomenological indicators that may point to less stressful, less impatient, less aggressive stances. But in the real world, it is, of course, a big problem, which must be solved by politics and social means, like very affordable tickets for public transport. I was a big fan of the 9 euro ticket that existed 2022 in Germany for 3 months. And currently I use the 49 euro ticket, but even this one's funding is in danger because federal states and federal government can't agree on how to fund it and to fund additional costs in the upcoming years. So when we take back when we remove money from bus simulation games and similar games, of course, it takes away one aspect of reality as it is now, but maybe it should take away it because it should be taken away in reality too. Of course, this is just my personal opinion, but I hope that this talk could give you an impression why I find the role of money in such types of games quite interesting and even important. Thanks a lot.